36 hours after you buy a brass box at a flea market for $52, a woman pays you $100,000 for it. You ask why. She looks at the box beside your coffee and says, "Not for the box, for what it opens." That is the moment the weekend stops being normal. Because the box does not look expensive. It looks like something that sat in a damp garage for 60 years and survived mostly because nobody cared enough to throw it away. The brass is dark. One corner is dented. There is no keyhole, no hinge, and no obvious way to open it. And until 36 hours ago, you had no idea it existed. A day and a half earlier, you are walking through a flea market outside Reading, Pennsylvania, with no plan beyond killing a Saturday morning. The place is half antiques, half garage cleanout. Tools without batteries, milk crates of records, old fishing gear, military jackets that may or may not be military, boxes of hardware priced by whoever got tired of sorting them. Near the back, an older seller has 3 folding tables and a trailer full of estate leftovers. You are looking through a wooden crate of hand tools when you notice something under a stack of yellowed road maps. It is a brass box about the size of a paperback book, except much heavier than it should be. The surface is divided by 4 thin grooves that wrap all the way around it. There is a small circular plate on one side and 3 shallow cuts underneath the left rear corner. You try to lift the lid. There is no lid. You rotate the circular plate. It moves maybe 10 degrees and stops. "What's this?" you ask. The seller looks over, shrugs, and says it came out of a house cleanout with everything else on the table. No story, no famous owner, no certificate. He says if you want the whole crate, tools and maps included, $52. You buy it mostly because the box bothers you. On the drive home, every turn makes something shift inside it. Not rattle, shift, like a small steel weight moving through a track. At home, you clean only enough dirt away to see the markings. On the bottom, under the oxidation, are 2 stamped characters and a date, SC 1938. At first, you assume it is an old mechanical puzzle or some specialized tool nobody remembers. But when you search for similar pieces, nothing looks right. Antique cash boxes have hinges, instrument cases open, cipher devices have dials. This thing has 4 continuous grooves and no seam wide enough to be a lid. You take 6 photos and post them in a collector forum. You include the dimensions, the weight, and the 1938 stamp. You do not include the underside because one photo came out blurry and you are too lazy to retake it. Most replies are guesses. Survey equipment, a machinist's calibration block, a homemade lock. One person says it is probably decorative and tells you to stop overthinking it. Then a new account sends a private message. "Where did you get this?" You do not answer. 10 minutes later, another message appears. "Please do not force the side plate." That gets your attention. You ask why. No reply. Instead, about an hour later, the owner of a small antique hardware shop you called earlier in the day phones you back. He sounds confused. "Did you send pictures of that brass thing to anyone else?" You tell him you posted them online. He says a woman contacted his store looking for the person who had asked about an unusual 1930s lock component. She left a number. She also said she was willing to pay for an introduction. You almost ignore it. Then she sends you one more message through the forum. There should be 3 shallow cuts beneath the left rear corner. If they are there, I can tell you exactly what you have. You turn the box over. 3 cuts. Those marks are not visible in any picture you posted. The next afternoon, you meet her in a diner 20 minutes from the flea market. Public place. Middle of the day. You bring the box in a backpack and do not take it out until she arrives. Her name is Rhea Calder. Late 40s, maybe? No dramatic entrance, no bodyguards, no expensive car in the window. She carries a thin document case and looks more like someone coming from a records office than someone about to offer 6 figures for flea market junk. You set the box on the table. She looks at the 3 cuts first, then the circular plate, then the stamped initials. Her expression changes only once, when she sees the date. "Where did you get it?" You tell her the flea market. "Which seller?" You ask why that matters. She opens the document case and removes a photocopy of a black and white photograph. The photo shows 5 men standing in a machine shop sometime before World War II. One is holding a brass object in both hands. Your object. Same grooves, same circular plate, same proportions. Even the spacing between the grooves matches. On the back of the photo, written in faded pencil, are 4 words. First key complete. June 1938. You stop treating this like an eccentric collector chasing a curiosity. Rhea slides another page across the table. It is a drawing of a mechanical assembly shown in cross-section. Most of the page is missing. The surviving section shows 4 pins entering a steel receiver. At the bottom is the same mark stamped on your box. S.C. Silas Calder, she says. My grandfather. He was 19 in 1938, working for a precision locksmith and machinist in eastern Pennsylvania. He spent most of his career building bank mechanisms, safe components, and industrial locks. According to Rhea, he also spent the last 31 years of his life trying to find one thing he had helped make when he was young. The box in front of you. You ask the obvious question. If your grandfather made it, why didn't he have it? Rhea says, because he wasn't supposed to. Then she puts the cashier's check on the table. $100,000. The amount is so large compared with what you paid that for a few seconds the rest of the story does not matter. $52 went out of your pocket. $100,000 is sitting in front of you. You still do not sign immediately. You call your bank. You verify the cashier's check and the issuing branch. Rhea has a simple bill of sale prepared for one object, the brass mechanism, stamped S.C. 1938. No rights to anything else from the flea market crate. No strange language about future discoveries. You sign. The box is hers. Then, instead of leaving, Rhea asks a question. What else was in the crate? You tell her. Old tools? Road maps? Hardware? Nothing you thought mattered. She asks you not to sell, clean, or throw away any of it. Then she asks if you will take her back to the flea market seller and help trace the estate the box came from. You look at the check again. Why? She rests one hand beside the box. Because I know what this is supposed to open. I don't know where the last part of the trail went. Nobody pays $100,000 for an old brass object unless the object is worth more than $100,000 to them. You ask her what it opens? She looks at the box for a long moment. Something my grandfather never found. That sentence keeps you in the diner for the next 2 hours. The story begins with a man named Orson Vale. Vale was not a celebrity. He was the kind of wealthy businessman whose name survives mostly on old deeds, court records, and buildings that were renamed after he died. In the 1920s and 1930s, he owned freight warehouses, rail transfer property, and shares in several mining and industrial companies across Pennsylvania and Nevada. In late 1940, he began liquidating assets. Some were sold normally. Some were converted into gold coins, small bullion bars, loose stones, and bearer instruments that could be moved without putting a bank in the middle of every transaction. Then the paper trail became strange. By the time Vale died in 1951, a little over $900,000 in assets that had appeared in earlier financial records did not appear in his final estate inventory. In early 1940s money, that was enormous. Adjusted for what the physical assets might be worth now, Rhea believes the missing cash could be worth somewhere between $15 and $20 million. You ask if anyone has ever proven the cash existed? Rhea says no. No one has ever proven it, and Rhea knows how that sounds. So she shows you the notebook. It belonged to Silas Calder. Most of it is ordinary. Measurements, lock tolerances, job addresses, lists of materials. But scattered through the pages are references to Vale, a private commission in 1938, and something Silas called the divided mechanism. One line appears 3 times over 20 years. The key was never a key. Rhea believes the brass box is what he meant. She does not think it contains anything. She thinks the whole object goes inside a larger machine. You turn the box over again. The 4 grooves suddenly look less decorative. Rhea turns the box in her hands. She does not pull or pry. She places 2 fingers on the circular side plate and rotates it to the same stop you reached at home. Then she presses the plate inward while holding the opposite groove with her thumb. Something clicks. The plate rotates another quarter turn. 4 steel pins slide slowly out of the bottom of the box. Not far. Less than half an inch. But enough. You stare at them. Rhea lets go, and the pins retract. There is no lid because it was never meant to open. The box itself is a key. Now the $100,000 payment finally makes sense. And for the first time, 100,000 feels like it may be the smallest number in the story. You ask Rhea exactly what she wants from you now that she owns the box. Her answer is simple. Help her trace exactly where it came from, and do not separate anything else that was sold with it. She has spent years following Vale's records and her grandfather's notes. She believes she knows where the first receiver was installed, but she has never had the part needed to activate it. More important, the box vanished sometime after 1941. If it has resurfaced inside one intact estate lot, the chain of ownership may explain why the key moved between families and where the trail went after Vale died. You ask what she thinks is still missing. She says, "I don't know yet." Later, you will learn she is leaving something out. The $100,000 was the purchase price. Helping with the search is a separate deal. Rhea covers research, legal, and travel costs. You keep ownership of every other item from the flea market crate. If those items and your provenance work help lead to recoverable property, you receive 25% of her net recovery under whatever lawful agreements her attorney can secure. You do not say yes immediately. Then you look at the remaining crate in the photo on your phone and agree. You write the participation terms down that night and have a lawyer review them the next morning. It slows the story down for a day, but it prevents the obvious disaster, arguing about ownership only after something valuable turns up. Before you go back, Rhea insists on doing one thing neither of you can undo later. Document the box exactly as it is. A safe technician she has used before agrees to examine it without opening or altering anything. He measures the brass, checks the machine marks, and takes X-ray images. The scan shows 4 narrow spring channels running through what looks like a solid body. No hollow center, no secret compartment, no place to hide coins, papers, or a conventional key. What looks like a box is almost entirely mechanism. The technician points to a set of uneven file marks around the internal pin guides. Hand-fitting. The kind of work that made sense before modern numerical machining. He will not certify the exact year from an X-ray, but nothing about the construction contradicts the 1938 stamp. Then he notices something neither you nor Rhea saw. The 4 pins are not identical. One is slightly longer. Another has a flattened side. If you rotate the side plate without pressing the correct groove, the pins stop in the wrong positions. The device does not merely extend 4 pieces of steel. It produces a specific physical pattern. A key with its own combination, the technician says. Rhea asks whether it could be duplicated. He studies the scan again. Eventually, if I could take it apart. Maybe. But if there are tolerances inside that receiver you haven't seen, I'd rather have the original. On the drive back, the $100,000 payment makes more sense. Rhea was not paying for antique brass. She was paying for the one surviving object most likely to operate, a mechanism nobody could reproduce from drawings alone. It also means forcing the box open would have been the fastest way to destroy the thing that made it valuable. Only after the agreement is signed do you go back to the flea market. The seller remembers the crate because you bought the whole thing instead of asking him to split it. He bought the contents from a local cleanout crew. The crew had emptied a house after the owner died with no close family nearby. You get the address. The house has already been sold, but public records give you the previous owner's name, Merritt Dane. The name means nothing to you. It means something to Rhea. She goes silent when you say it. You ask if she knows the name. Not Merritt, she says. His father. Merritt Dane's father, Hollis Dane, worked as a surveyor and civil engineer. In 1940 and 1941, he did contract work on several private Vale properties. At that point, the flea market find stops looking random. The box did not simply survive. It survived inside the family of a man connected to Vale's land. That raises a new question. Why would a device built by Silas Calder end up with Hollis Dane? Rhea has no answer. So you go back to the cleanout crew. Most of the estate is gone. Furniture sold. Papers recycled. tools scattered across 3 flea markets and an auction. But one worker remembers a stack of old road atlases because nobody wanted them. He still has them in his garage, waiting for paper recycling. You buy the stack for $20. The worker also lets you take the remaining paper lot for another $40. 2 notebooks, a bundle of receipts, and a box of photographs he had not sorted yet. There are 12 atlases, dated from 1948 to 1971. Nothing in the first 6. Nothing in the 7th. In a 1956 Pennsylvania road atlas, one page has a clean rectangular hole cut through the paper near the center fold. You place the brass box over it. Exact fit. At first you think someone used the box as a cutting template. Then Rhea notices the page number, 43. She opens her grandfather's notebook and flips to a list of numbers written without explanation. 17, 43, 9, 2. She has seen them hundreds of times. She tried dates, combinations, addresses, lock sequences. Now one of them is staring back from a road atlas. Page 43 covers a stretch of old industrial land along a river northwest of the city. Most of the 1956 landmarks are gone. One remains in county records under a previous name, Vale Transfer Pump Station No. 2. The building was part of a private water and fire suppression system serving Vale warehouses. It shut down in the 1960s. The main structure was demolished, but part of the foundation and service chamber survived because removing it would have cost more than filling the site around it. Rhea has been there before, which catches you off guard. She says her grandfather took her once when she was a teenager. He believed something had been installed there, but by then the visible building was already gone. He searched the surviving concrete and found nothing. You ask why she did not tell you that earlier. She says because until today, she did not know page 43 mattered. You accept the explanation for the moment. The site now belongs to a small industrial property company. Rhea's attorney contacts them, explains that you are researching an old mechanical installation, and secures written access. If anything valuable is discovered, the owner receives a negotiated share of any verified movable property recovered there, subject to whatever estate or third-party claims may still exist. The paperwork takes longer than the interesting part, but without it, finding anything valuable would create a second problem before solving the first. 2 days later, you stand on a cracked concrete slab beside a river with Rhea, a property manager, and a contractor who has brought lights, a camera scope, and tools. The old service chamber is below grade. A steel hatch installed decades later opens onto a narrow set of concrete steps. At the bottom is a room barely larger than a walk-in closet. Most of it is empty. One wall is newer than the others. Not new, just newer. The contractor scrapes away loose mineral buildup and exposes a rectangular steel plate set into the concrete. At its center is a recessed shape, the size of your brass box. This is the first receiver. For the first time since the diner, Rhea looks genuinely nervous. Rhea takes the box from its padded case, then holds it out to you. "You found it," she says. "You do it." The box slides into the recess so perfectly that the last 88 years seem to disappear. It does not click. It does not turn. Nothing happens. For 10 seconds, the whole story collapses in your head. Maybe the fit is coincidence. Maybe Silas built dozens of these. Maybe this is an old service component that never had anything to do with hidden money. Then you remember the side plate. You press it inward and rotate. The 4 steel pins extend inside the receiver. This time, something answers from behind the wall. A heavy mechanical clunk. Then another. A narrow panel releases along one edge. The contractor pulls it open. Behind it is not a vault. It is a cavity about 2 feet deep. Inside sits a sealed steel cylinder. Rhea laughs once, not because it is funny, but because after years of paper and dead ends, there is finally something in front of her that her grandfather could not have planted for her. The cylinder is removed, photographed, and opened on a worktable upstairs. Inside are 3 things. A strip of oilcloth wrapped around a folded ledger page, a small black and white photograph, and a brass disc with 4 slots cut around its edge. The photograph shows Orson Vale standing beside a tunnel entrance. Next to him are 3 younger men. Silas Calder is one of them. Hollis Dane, the surveyor, is another. The third man is identified on the back only as P. Rusk. The ledger page has no amounts, just property codes, dates, and 3 initials beside each entry. C for Calder, D for Dane, R for Rusk. At the bottom, in Vale's handwriting, is a sentence. No one man carries the road, the key, and the order. Now the divided mechanism makes sense. Vale did not trust one person with access to whatever he was protecting. Calder's side built the physical key. Dane's side controlled location information. Rusk's side held the operating order. You have the key. You have just recovered part of the location trail from Dane's family. But the operating order is still missing. The name takes half a day to resolve. P. Rusk turns out to be Perrin Rusk, Vale's internal records man, a quiet accountant who handled property transfers and equipment purchases. He is exactly the kind of person nobody writes biographies about, and exactly the kind of person you would use if you wanted a system that depended on dates, categories, and paperwork rather than a treasure map. Rusk died in 1967. His house was sold long ago. His children moved west. Years later, Silas traced one branch of the family and acquired a small bundle of Rusk papers at an estate sale. That is where the 4-slot drawing came from. Rhea inherited the bundle with the rest of her grandfather's research. But the drawing never told her what the slots meant. You spend hours comparing it against old safe catalogs, railway switching diagrams, survey symbols, and even 4-position electrical controls. Nothing fits. The disk is too simple to encode much by itself. It feels incomplete because it is incomplete. The disk is useful only if you also have the physical key and the correct receiver. Before you can solve the disk, you notice Rhea already has part of the answer. While the contractor photographs the ledger page, she takes a folded sheet from her document case and compares it with the brass disk. The paper has the same 4-slot pattern. You ask what it is. She does not answer quickly enough. You take a step back. You already knew about Rusk. Rhea closes the document case. Then she tells you the part she left out. Her grandfather found this first chamber in 1994. Not opened. Found. He located the outline of the steel plate behind the concrete, but had no key, and he refused to damage the mechanism. He believed forcing it would destroy whatever information was inside. Years later, he traced the Rusk family and obtained the drawing of the 4-slot disk that is now in Rhea's file. He never found the disk itself. So yes, she knew there were 3 participants. And yes, she suspected Hollis Dane's family might matter. But she did not know where the Calder key had gone. And she did not know the Dane connection survived through Merritt's estate until your flea market purchase revealed it. You ask the harder question. If you already knew the first chamber was here, why did you need to know where I got the box? Rhea points to the ledger. Because the key was in Dane's house. It shouldn't have been. The provenance now matters for a different reason. If Calder made the key, Dane should not have had it unless someone intentionally moved it after the system was built. Maybe the box was passed to Dane because the original plan changed. Maybe Vale wanted the 3 parts reunited later. Or maybe someone tried to reach the treasure and failed. You spend the rest of that night going through every item that came from Merritt Dane's estate. The tool crate, the road atlases, the receipts and 2 notebooks, the box of old photographs the cleanout worker had almost recycled with the rest. Near midnight, you find a photograph of Hollis Dane standing beside the same tunnel entrance shown in Vale's picture. But this one was taken later. On the back is a date. October 14th, 1952. The year after Vale died. Under the date are 2 words. Moved inland. That is all. No map, no address. But the phrase creates a new possibility. The place in Vale's photograph may not be the final vault at all. It may be where something was moved from. The brass disc becomes more important. Around its edge are 4 slots of different lengths. Rhea overlays the old Rusk drawing on a scan. The slot pattern matches, but the drawing contains something the disc does not. Tiny numbers beside each slot. 17, 43, 9, 2. The same sequence from Silas's notebook. You already know 43 was a page number. What if the other numbers are not part of one combination? What if each number belongs to a different layer of the search? 17 could be a map grid. 9 could be a survey marker. 2 could be a property code. The next morning, you pull the county survey archives for Hollis-Dane's projects. For the first 2 hours, the new theory goes nowhere. Sheet 17 appears in dozens of files. Grid 43 appears in several. Marker 9 is common survey language. Structure 2 could mean almost anything. Then you get the first false hit. A 1953 drawing puts all 4 numbers on a Vail-owned warehouse expansion. The building still exists. For 20 minutes, it looks like the search has become easy. You find a matching structure number, a sealed utility room, and even an old steel equipment mount in the wall. Rhea is ready to call the property owner when you notice the survey was drafted by a different engineer. Hollis-Dane's name is nowhere on it. More importantly, the drawing uses grid numbers in the opposite direction. 43 is not a location. It is a revision code. The lead collapses. The dead end gives you one useful constraint. The 4 numbers cannot be searched independently. They have to belong to one document created by Dane. So you stop searching for the numbers and search for him. Every surviving project file with Hollis-Dane's signature goes into one stack. Only then does a company name appear twice in 1952. North March Utilities. One of the 2 files is routine drainage work. The other is different. North March existed for only 11 years. Its ownership traces back through 2 holding companies to Vail's estate. The 1952 file is a survey for an underground water conduit on land 32 miles inland from the river. Sheet 17. Grid 43. Marker 9. Structure 2. The 4 numbers were never a lock combination. They were an address, but only if you had the right survey set. Structure 2 is listed as a pressure relief chamber connected to an abandoned service tunnel beneath a low ridge. The surface parcel changed hands 6 times. Today, it is part of a disused industrial tract owned by a regional materials company. Before anyone goes there, Rhea's attorney starts over with the paperwork. Access permission, recovery split, liability. A written procedure for documenting anything found. You hate the delay, but by now the numbers are too large to improvise. The materials company agrees in exchange for a percentage of any verified movable property recovered from the chamber. They also send a site engineer because the old tunnel has not been inspected in years. 3 mornings later, you are standing in front of a concrete portal nearly swallowed by trees. The entrance does not look like the entrance in Vail's photograph. It looks worse. The original steel door is gone. A modern barrier covers the opening, and behind it the tunnel slopes into darkness. The engineer checks air quality and structure before anyone goes in. The first 100 feet are ordinary utility tunnel. Pipe brackets, drain channels, mineral stains, nothing hidden. At marker 9, the tunnel forks. One branch is collapsed after 20 feet. The other ends at a concrete wall. The survey says structure 2 should be beyond that wall. There is no door. For almost an hour, you search the surface. Rhea studies the drawing. The engineer measures the tunnel length twice. Then you notice the drain channel. It continues under the wall. The wall was added later. A camera scope through a narrow gap shows empty space on the other side. The company authorizes a small opening at the edge where later blockwork meets the original concrete. Behind it is another chamber. And on the far wall is a steel door. Not a bank vault door. No giant wheel. No polished metal. Just a heavy rectangular plate with a circular receiver at chest height and 4 narrow arcs cut around it. Rhea takes out the brass disc. The disc fits the outer arcs. Your box fits the center. For the first time, the pieces are together. Calder key in the middle. Rusk order disc around it. Dane's survey brought you to the door. 3 men. 3 functions. You expect the mechanism to open. It does not. The box goes in. The disc seats around it. The side plate turns. Nothing. You try again. Still nothing. The engineer asks if there is a sequence. Rhea reads the numbers from the Rusk drawing, but turning the disc towards 17, 43, 9, and 2 makes no mechanical sense. There are no numbered marks on the door. Then you see 4 tiny symbols stamped into the steel, almost hidden by corrosion. A rail spike. A square. A triangle. A wave. The same symbols appear beside 4 entries on the ledger page from the first chamber. They are not directions. They are categories: rail property, warehouse property, mining property, water property. Each category has a date. The dates are the operating order. You arrange them from earliest to latest. Rail, water, warehouse, mining. Rhea rotates the outer disc through the 4 positions while you hold pressure on the box. Each correct stop lets the disc settle slightly deeper into the receiver. A wrong move would force it back to the start. At the 4th position, the 4 pins extend. A counterweight moves somewhere inside the wall. The sound is slow and deep, a mechanical weight that has not moved in decades. Then the steel door releases by less than an inch. Nobody speaks. The engineer pulls it wider. Cold, dry air comes out. Behind the door is a room about 12 feet long and 8 feet wide. Shelves line both sides. For 1 second, your brain fills the shelves with gold before your eyes catch up. There are boxes, dozens of them. You open the nearest one under the engineer's camera. Paper. Old bond certificates. You open another. More paper. A third contains stock certificates for companies that disappeared generations ago. Rhea sits down on the edge of a crate. The entire search may have worked perfectly and still led to nothing useful. Bearer instruments are not magic. Most old paper securities are canceled, redeemed, expired, or collectible only as historical objects. You could be looking at a room full of beautifully preserved paper worth less than the legal work required to sort it. The engineer keeps scanning the walls. You keep looking at the room. Something feels wrong. The problem is not another clue. It is the room itself. The tunnel outside slopes downward slightly. The original survey lists the pressure chamber floor at a lower elevation than the floor you are standing on. You ask the engineer to check it. He pulls the old survey from his tablet and measures. The numbers do not match. The room should be roughly 4 feet deeper. You look at the steel shelving again. Every shelf is bolted to the walls. None is bolted to the floor. At the back corner, one floor plate has a narrow, recessed ring under decades of dust. The engineer stops everyone before touching it. He checks for wiring, gas, structural risk. Nothing obvious. 2 bolts come out, then 4. The plate lifts. Under it is darkness. A ladder descends into a lower cavity. Rhea finally speaks. My grandfather never knew there was a second room. The lower chamber is smaller and much drier. There are 6 steel cases on raised blocks. No theatrical mountain of gold. No loose coins spilling across the floor. Just 6 cases, labeled with dates between 1940 and 1942. The first case is opened under documentation. Inside are canvas rolls. Inside the rolls are gold coins. Not modern commemoratives. Older US and European pieces, many in unusually good condition. The second case contains small bullion bars with refinery marks. The third contains sealed packets and small boxes that later turn out to hold cut and uncut gemstones. The remaining cases hold mixed coins, bullion, and records tying portions of the cash to purchases made through Vale-controlled companies. No one tries to price it in the tunnel. That comes later. For now, one fact is enough. The treasure was real, and the object you bought in a $52 flea market lot opened the door to it. The next several weeks are less exciting and more important. Everything is inventoried. Attorneys notify parties who may have claims. Specialists verify the metal, coins, stones, and documents. Some of the paper from the upper room has collector value. Most does not. A few pieces are historically significant because they connect the mechanical system to Vale's asset transfers. The valuation process produces one last answer about the history. Purchase records in the lower cases show that Vale did not move the entire missing sum at once. He built the cash over roughly 18 months, using several companies and several forms of portable wealth. That explains why no single withdrawal or shipment ever proved the treasure existed. On paper, it looked like dozens of unrelated transactions. In the room, it becomes one collection. One 1952 transfer sheet answers the question that has bothered you since the flea market. It records the Calder unit being released to H. Dane during the inland relocation, authorized by P. Rusk. The box ended up in Dane's family because Dane had been given the physical key when the cash was moved after Vale's death. He kept it. His son inherited it without understanding what it was. Decades later, a clean-out crew put it in a crate with old tools. It also explains the upper chamber. The paper was camouflage with a purpose. Anyone who reached the first door without understanding the original survey elevation could believe they had found Vale's archive, photograph it, and leave. The valuable material was below the floor, where even a successful intruder might never look. The final preliminary valuation comes in at $18.4 million for the recoverable physical assets and collectible material, before taxes, fees, property owner share, and unresolved estate claims. Your agreement does not make you a quarter owner of $18.4 million overnight. But after the first settlements and distributions, your share is still enough to change your life. The cashier's check from the diner starts to seem almost funny. Almost. Rhea later frames a copy of the cashier's check stub in her office. Months later, when the brass box is being examined by a conservator, you get a call. One of the 4 steel pins has a line engraved along its underside. The mark is so fine it is invisible until the pin is extended and lit from the side. It is not a serial number. It is a set of letters and digits. Rhea checks her grandfather's notebook. Near the back, on a page neither of you understood before, Silas wrote one sentence beside the same code. Vale ordered 2. You read it twice. Then you look at the brass box on the conservator's table. For months, everyone treated it as the key to a lost fortune. Nobody had asked the more dangerous question. What else was it made to open?